I'm Christa Hill.
And I'm Renee Matsella.
And we are the founders of Tacit Edge, a tech education company dedicated to shifting the demographics of women and visible minorities graduating into product management at top companies around the world.
And this is our podcast, Product for Humans, where we explore the human side of product management. We'll answer all your burning questions like, what is product management? What is a product? How do you get started? And why do you belong in product management? That's right, because you belong. We hope you enjoy the show.
Oh, looks like we got our first question. Would love to know how to have success when pivoting into product management and interviewing for a PDM position. Renee, do you want to take that one first?
For sure. We actually did a whole webinar on this exact question where we've helped hundreds of people progress in their careers. And what we saw when we looked at the trends between all of them is something that we call the SAS method. So it's easier to remember because it's skill, align, and show. So we saw that when we saw people who successfully pivoted into product management, they found a way to learn the skills through projects or by practicing the skills in their current roles, because product management practices are useful in any role. If you are solving problems, getting to know users, you can do that in almost any role. So that's number one, learn the skills that you don't have and practice them with real projects or on the job. Number two, we saw that people who successfully pivoted in, a lot of them already have the skills that are needed. 80% of the skills that you need to be a great product manager, you already have. So if you're a critical thinker, if you have empathy, if you're a great leader, and the things that you did in a previous job, 80% of that is probably transferable to product management. So see yourself as a product manager already. And then number three is showing. So don't tell people your skills, show your skills. That's another reason working with groups and working on projects and real products is so important. So those are the three things that we see really stand out. And if you are working on this, have your skills and have your stories, it makes your interview so much easier. Because when you're interviewed, you have the stories to share about all the skills you have and how you've solved problems for people. So in the Coles notes, that's the Coles notes of how to pivot and how to succeed in an interview. There is also a book called How to Ace the PM Interview, I think. That's a helpful book as well to check out if you're interviewing.
Cool. And I think that parlays us into our next question, which is, do you have any recommendations for somebody with product experience who finds themselves unemployed and not sure how to break back into the product space? So this would be probably somebody who's adjacent to a product role, doing a lot of the work already, not working right now. What would you recommend, Renee, as a way that they could build their confidence to find that job again? We see like our students build portfolios of products that they are working on in their spare time, creating their own products. And even if they're not coming to life, it's still a portfolio of work of things that you're doing. Can you share with us a little bit of some of the examples that you've seen where that's really worked for folks?
Oh, absolutely. So just because you find yourself unemployed doesn't mean you aren't a product manager. We see people take these things that happen to them that often, likely this happened because of something that was out of your control. So it has nothing to do with you. So just remember, you are a product manager. So if you act and know that, and instead of thinking, oh, I used to be one. No, you are one.
Are one. You still are.
You
Yeah.
still are.
Yes.
So are you building products on the side? Have you done anything entrepreneurial? Have you done some side consulting work? Have you built a website? Have you built a blog? So the folks that we see have the most success breaking back in or into product are the people who are using their skills and showing it off. It can be as simple as starting a blog, sharing your ideas, trying your product management skills in different areas. And if you have those skills, you'll see you can use them anywhere. Chris and I often joke that our whole lives are designed with the product.
Our whole lives, yeah, raising I'm a product manager for my child, raising my child. She's my MVP. So I think if you look at it through the lens of like, where are you practicing product management in your life right now? And then see yourself as that's a product job. So how can you talk about that in your resume? How can you talk about that in your bio? How can you keep the spirit of what you're doing every day in product management alive so that you start to believe in yourself that you are still a product manager and you see yourself the way we see you, which is you are still practicing product. I think that's more of a confidence thing to overcome versus like a competence. So there's ways that we can overcome that, but also picking up a practical project. And we've got a great program running right now at SAIT where we can give you a product job during the course. So if that helps you overcome that hurdle, we can support you with that too. So reach out to us after this if you're curious to find out more about that. So let's go to the next question. And it is, as a product manager, you bridge the gaps between different departments or parts of the company. For example, marketing and development and later stage, many others. What can you do if one of these departments has considerably more sway than others? Oh, my screen just moved, so I'm just going to go back to the question. In a startup, what happens when a design/dev team has much more power than, say, marketing or sales? What unbalances have you seen, and what can you do about them? Oh my goodness. Do you want me to take this one, Renee?
Yeah, go for it.
I would say this is life of product. There is no such thing as everyone gets a say, but nobody gets a vote, or everyone gets a vote in the world of product as we know. It is about how humans are interacting and their level of influence on the process. People have varying degrees of abilities of being able to influence that process. And you're going to see any mix of that in any stage of any company at any point in your career. I think really what our job is in that is to name that inequity, okay, and try to manage with it and call attention to it and hold space for those in the room that you feel are not being heard because their influence isn't as high. This inequity in their influence could be because of many things. They could have a position of power in the room versus others that do not. This could come from a great study around position of power and privilege based on their background, where they're coming from. They may be more likely to contribute than others. But I believe it is our job as product managers to hold back the room, to hold space for other people to contribute and for other perspectives to be heard. So if this organization or this part of the organization is going around you to influence it, again, it's about shining a light on that activity, sitting down with them and asking them, how can we hold space for other folks' perspectives to come through so that we make sure we're building the right thing? Because the risk in the product is you're going to be listening to some voices other than others, and you're going to build the wrong thing that doesn't solve the problem. So I think we have to put that at the front of the conversation. Then what can we do as a group or a team to hold space for all perspectives to make sure the product manager, builds the right thing? Not who likes me the most, okay? Not how many people I can say yes to, but how can I make sure I'm building the right thing? I hope that helps, but that's definitely one of the EQ components of the role is understanding, seeing, and acknowledging that imbalance, and then parlaying that over to what risk it represents in the product, and then presenting it to the group as a product risk instead of, you're too loud over here, you're not loud enough. How can we make that balance? It's actually about balancing risk, not noise. Hopefully that helps, Renee. I don't know if you have anything to pile on to that.
Could not agree more. When we see these power imbalances, who are we solving for? It should be our user that has all the power. So it doesn't matter which team has more power if we're solving for our user and solving for our whole business. So Krista's entirely right. When we don't have space for those voices, we all lose. We all lose. Yeah, and it is the role of the product manager to create that space. How we've seen it done practically is having those different groups, getting them in the room together and saying that they're part of the team. And we agree together on the goals that we want to achieve. If we're all part of the same team, doesn't matter which team we came from, because we're part of the team that's trying to make this product successful. So that's one of the ways that we can level the playing field.
Yeah, and just not using that word stakeholder and painting folks as other. I think that's really what Renee is driving at, is that the second we call you a part of the team, now we have that concept of how we're operating as a team instead of as a stakeholder group. And that is, again, it's a loaded term. That means it's a power struggle to get what stakeholder is going to be the happiest, get the most work done, instead of who's a member of the team. And then all of a sudden that shifts, right? So it's about language, it's about approach, and it's about you being strategic about how you hold space for others to come through so that you reduce risk on your product. All right. That was a good one. Woo!
Wow, such a good one. We could probably have a whole
That could be like a whole, yeah, that could be a whole session.
and this next one could also be a whole session. So we see, can you share strategies or best practices for creating effective product development processes from scratch in a company that lacks established procedures? This whole problem is probably $1 trillion industry. This problem is the whole thing that Agile is here to solve and tries to solve, and all this education is here to solve. It is it's difficult. And there's consultants that make a lot of money that try to bring these product development processes to a company from scratch. Now, what you can do as a product manager, I don't know, Krista, do you want to take this on?
For me, this is use the templates, right? Like the best thing that you can do when you're training folks is do what works best when you're working in ambiguity, which is consistency, so that people know how they're showing up for the meetings that you're booking. So the routines and rituals that you have need to be consistent, regular, and repeatable and scalable. Okay, so if you have a practice where you don't have an established practice of development, your primary goal is speed to learnings, which is the definition of agile, right? Is just speed to learnings. So you don't need a coach to implement this. It lives within you, and it is within your sphere of influence to make it happen with your calendar. Okay, so you're booking routines and rituals and activities to regularly align and then reprioritize with whoever you have around you as the company is growing. So just make sure that the meetings and the rituals that you create are titled in such a way that people know what they're being asked to do when they come in, and that you're holding them accountable for showing up. Okay. And when you hold them accountable by reaching out to them one by one to make sure that they're going to be there, make sure they know how important they are in the process as we are establishing this process and this practice as a team. Then going back and soliciting feedback from them one-on-one, asking them what they need more of or less of from you as you continue to iterate forward in this practice is key. So routine and predictability, and you saying what you say, that doing what you're going to do, make sure you come through on all those obligations on these routines and rituals, and that builds trust and confidence in what you're doing, and then you have more influence on how this is going to shape. But we have, through our courses, you can grab every template you would ever need to get this underway for every activity you would ever need to do within a company. And that's why we created it, because we were these people. We walk every time you're starting over. And then even when you have a standard of practice and then you lose a few people on the team, you're starting again. Right? So that wheel rolls forward and rolls back consistently. So what is always constant is your routines, your habits and rituals around alignment and reprioritization, communication, alignment, all those activities, right? You're the constant in that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so definitely check out the course. And if there's one thing I'd say that we've seen that makes the biggest difference to start bringing these great practices to the workplace is weekly or bi-weekly demos of the work that you've been doing and the learnings that you've acquired. If you do that one thing, really cool things start to happen. People get used to learning weekly. They see and can give you feedback. We see that it's iterative. We see that something last week that we got feedback on was then improved, and people start getting addicted to those frequent learnings and improvements. And when people get addicted to the frequent learning and improvements, instead of just gunning for timelines, that's when we can really bring these iterative product practices to our organization.
So great question.
All right, we've got another one. And please keep them coming if you have follow-ups too on the ones that we answered and you want more clarification. Please keep adding. So we have and I realized we can hit this show here. Can people see? Oh, there we go.
Oh,
Here's the
awesome.
question. Amazing. Even better.
Was easier.
All right. So next question here. I'm working through the PD&T course, and there's a section on living in the abstract. Testing helps guide the direction and priorities of a product, but what happens when tests are inconclusive and the qualitative conclusions that you've extracted are ones that the development team or leadership team do not agree on?
This one's, oh, Renee, please.
Oh my gosh, this is another really good, we can go really deep on this.
Yeah.
Okay, so your tests are inconclusive and the qualitative conclusions that you've extracted are ones that the development team or leadership team do not agree on. Let's just say that it doesn't matter if the development team or the leadership doesn't agree. If we have data to back something up, that is the closest thing to truth. But if your tests are inconclusive and only have as qualitative conclusions, we probably don't want to move forward with that data quite yet. We need a bit more information. This is why at Tacit Edge, we really believe in multiple types of testing that are lightweight instead of doing one perfect study, because one perfect study doesn't exist. So we like looking at multiple sources of data. So the development team and the leadership team, they are a source of data, but we need to validate that source, just like we need to validate the qualitative conclusions that we've gotten. So that means we want to do additional tests. So is there an improvement on the experiment that you can do? Is there another experiment you can do? Is there another source of information you can go to? Is there a Google search you can do? A metrics platform you can go to? Financial information you can gather? So once you've gathered from a few different sources and start to see the trends, then we know if the development team or leadership team is right or not, or if we're right or not. And it doesn't matter who's right. All that matters is if the data is telling us the direction that we can go in.
Yeah.
And it's not about egos. Doesn't matter.
An opinion. It's not about opinion at all. It's about gathering more data. And there's that famous quote that we've seen come up in our course many times where it's, if we're not getting the right answer, then we just haven't asked the right question yet. So through a little bit further in the course, I'm not sure if I don't think it's in the T, but it's definitely in our professional course outline, is that line of questioning and learning how to use line of questioning to go looking for the answers that you weren't able to surface. How do we dig deeper with our user groups or with our partners in development to surface those questions that we can ask and go after new data sets, right? But again, lightweight and fast with limited investment so that we can use the data to get us to the next question. And that speed to that learnings gives you that agility that you need to help you get past that. We know no information to we learn just a little bit more to help us make the next right choice. Then we learn a little bit more to learn the next right choice, instead of just going with folks' opinion and their gut. Because while I would love to say that works in product, we all got away with that for the last, I don't know, maybe the first 10 years of our careers, but the easy product problems have been solved. The much more complicated ones are the ones that we are working on every day. And those ones you need data, not gut. And your bias also does really play a huge role in your opinion. And so who are we really designing this for? Why does that opinion matter? Because you're not the user, right?
Absolutely. And actually, what's interesting too is if there's one piece of data says this and another piece of data says that, and they disagree, that is a sign. Oh, why do they disagree? That's when there's so much ambiguity out there. That is a sign of where you can go. Because lots of times as product people, we're just trying to figure out the next best step. When things don't line up, that's a clue. Okay, why aren't these lining up? Let's go dig in. All right.
Oh, no, hello,
So good.
Demi. We see you.
Oh, hi,
Hey, Judy.
Tammy. All right. Another one. What actions can a product manager take when, for example, a development team is not working efficiently? Oh, one of our favorite questions. And one of the questions that we get called in for, this is probably the number one question that we get called in for from companies that we like to help out with. I don't know if Krista, you want to take this one to start?
I can say the phrase and then tell you what we do about it. But usually people call us when, here's the quote, our dev team isn't delivering. And we have to say, okay, why? What's standing in the way? Is there something going on perhaps? Because usually when we're looking to have change or efficiency in an organization, we don't start at the output. We start with the information that's coming in from the team and the quality of the information that's coming from the team and all of their relationships with their business partners and the focus that the executive team has. Usually, this is a symptom of an issue that's happening higher up the food chain. Okay. So when there's not a lot of focus and there's a lot of ambiguity in what the most important thing is, we can see teams having a really hard time delivering because they have too many priorities, right? And we have to remember that priority was not meant to be pluralized. It's singular priority. And so as a product manager, your role in that is to make sure through, again, our templates, we teach that concept of now, next, and later instead of a big old Gantt chart of all the things that we're going to deliver. We need to get the development team really close to the most important thing and why it's the most important thing. And the more they know about it, the more they're empowered to build and the less you have to be serving requirements. So this is a symptom of a lot of things, but it's not, it can be obviously some conflict within the development team. That is a thing. We know that's a thing. We're all humans, right? There's going to be some interactions that we need to resolve and work well as a team. But if we have a clear working agreement as a team, everybody knows what their role is and they've all agreed to it, right? And they have a place where they can retro that relationship that they have with one another and how it's impacting their delivery. That's one thing. But your role in that is to make sure that everything that's coming to the team has a clear line of priority, why it matters, and they're really close to their users and not their assumptions about them as they're building so that they are shipping and developing and iterating on the right things. So from my perspective, this one has a lot of spokes, but usually this is when we get called into a company for consulting is how do we get our team shipping more faster? But it's not about that. It's about shipping value, right? What are the goals that we're setting? Are those goals really well known? Are they transparent? Can we see them? That really is where that comes into play. So again, as a product manager, it's your job to make sure the priority is known, that you're not sending them too much to work on at one time. You can keep them in the context. They're nice and close to the user. You are supplying them with metrics of what success looks like and how that is measured so that they know what that is. And as a group, you navigate what that looks like as far as efficiency goes, what your routine and rituals are in your team at that point. Renee, I'm not sure if you've got any more to add to that.
Perfect. Another excellent question. Okay, let's see another one. Okay. I was wondering if you could talk about any specific or significant product challenges or failures you've dealt with in your career. How did you address it? What did you learn from those experiences?
We all have them. Renee, you've got a great story though. Not that I'm saying I don't want to share mine because I have a plethora of them.
Oh yeah, I think it's
But you go first.
yeah. Product management is one of those things where you're failing more often than you're succeeding. But the important thing is that when you do succeed, it often compensates for all of the failures on the way. And the failures on the way are giving us clues as to the direction that we should be taking. And it's pointing us towards where the successes will happen. So I think one of the biggest things is to know that failure is absolutely part of the process. And it's what we need to accept, as painful as it is. And yeah, I've had friggin' massive product failures. I had one failure that we worked on a product for six months. We had a hunch that it wasn't going to succeed. It was one of those, like, someone asked for it and it was on a timeline and we had to deliver. But as we know, when we're developing products, and as Krista said, all the easy problems have been solved, we need a lot of iteration and experimentation to solve problems. So this problem in the end, we did not solve and it epically failed. We got like a 2 out of 10 on our usability scale. Like, yes, did we solve the problem? Absolutely not. But what did we learn? We learned about the group systems that were happening, the systemic patterns that were happening within the company and the team that led to that failure, that led to us not being able to experiment more. The company actually handled it incredibly well. We said, okay, no blame. This is when failure happens and we start pointing fingers. None of that. Failure is part of the process. So we looked at it. We said, okay, this is what happened. Like now we can avoid that in the future. And look, we only wasted 6 months on this with one team, where maybe that could have been a year with 3 teams. So it is really part of the learning. And as painful as it is, these are the stories that are going to be what make your career. This story is as important to my career as any of the successes that I've had. And I will never forget it. As painful as it was, I learned more from that experience than any of our successes. So that's
Yeah.
it.
It's so powerful. When you fail, you learn way more than when you win. And I think that's the hard thing about product management. You're always trying to build trust and confidence in your abilities within the company. And when there's a failure, that can feel like that's tarnished. Unless you can take the learnings from it and share it quickly with others so that they don't make that same mistake. And I can say, if I could map all the failures, the most common one was we went too fast and there was something we didn't consider. So there was someone we didn't have at the table that we missed, and we were going so quickly we didn't notice. So the biggest learning every time, the common denominator in that was me, and me slowing the team down so we can ask, what have we not considered? Look around the room. Everybody just look to your left and to your right. Do we have the right people in here that should be here? And every time I did that, I surfaced 1 or 2 more people or more perspectives that we had not considered. And when I started doing and asking that one question alone, my risk of failure in every project went down significantly. So I think it's when we are sitting in that place of all knowing and instead of all learning that we think we've got it, we've got enough information to go forward. We don't stop to question, do we? Is there anything that's emerged here, new information that we could ask? Is there something we haven't considered? And when you ask that question in a room, that's really when people who are a little bit more quiet, who wouldn't have shared because they think you've got it all figured out and you're rolling. And so their opinion, maybe I shouldn't contribute it because maybe I just don't know. Again, hold space for them to voice that. And if you're seeking that information, that's when you'll find it. But when you're not, you don't. And that is, I think, of all the failure points I've ever had, I could map it back to that just one thing every time, over and over.
Yeah. I could definitely agree with that. I think most of my failures were from that, especially failures to launch. All right, we're ready. And then one team's, we can't support this. And then you have to delay the whole thing. So common. And another is just building too much is another huge point of failure. Waiting and holding it close before we show it to someone and get feedback because we're afraid of failure. So we hide it until it's too late, where we could have smaller failures along the way.
And that's back to that one of the original questions, like the demo, the routine that you do around showing every 2 weeks. So that's not a huge blunder, right? Like I could stand up at a demo and if we really miss the mark, it's, I'm so glad we only spent a sprint on that. And then it was, oh my God, the perspective shifts. We didn't spend a year. We spent a sprint. Whereas we could have kept going down that path. Lord knows where it would have gone. So the demo was really the ultimate risk reducer for a product manager career if I was to, and make sure the right people again. What have we not considered? Who should be here right now that you don't see in the room right now? Yeah.
All right. Another question. Is there a PDM structure that traditionally works well for large enterprise products? I have found this as an area of challenge if you organize yourself by user group, by product function, etc. That's another gajillion-dollar question. Yeah, a lot of different frameworks have attempted to solve this problem, and some work, some don't. And everything in product, it depends. I would say the best resource that we've seen on this is Marty Kagan's book, Empowered, where he describes really well the trade-offs between organizing teams based on the user group versus function versus platform. And the reason this is so hard is because there is always trade-offs. If you have a platform team that's an expert at payments, it then means your user team that needs the payment platform might not be able to get their work in, but that payments team becomes an expert at that product. So there's always give and take there. And I think the answer is that there is no one size fits all. It's about knowing the pros and cons of each type of structure and trying and implementing it and finding what works the best in your company. I'm sure Christa has.
And we see this over and over again because team topology and design is something that we talk to folks a lot about. What's going to be the most successful team structure for the problems and the goals and the value we're going after right now? Then that never gets revisited for another 6 or 7 years, where the problem set is totally different. The product has evolved significantly and we don't revisit. And I think what I don't see enough of is leadership teams having the courage to sit down the product people and say, how do we design for today? What does today look like for team structure? If we were to shift everyone right now towards the future orientation of our product, what does that look like? And I think having an eye on the long-term strategy for the product is a big part of the conversation that sadly I don't see enough of in leadership. They see it as more of a one and done. What do you mean we have to revisit that? We've never had to do that before. And if you solve one problem in your business with great product development, you're going to create another one, a new opportunity. Do you have the people in place to make that new opportunity run and thrive? What does that look like? Can we gut check that? Doesn't mean everybody has to lift and shift and move their seats, right? But it means that we're having an open and honest conversation around what success looks like and moving past our comfort in the conversation, worrying about our job and our position and orienting ourselves to follow the path of product-led growth and the product problem, not our individual careers. So you can see there's a people element to this problem that can override the practicality of all the shifting around all the time. But you notice it in a startup, everybody's wearing all the hats and we're just moving around really quickly. And everyone's really aligned because we're super focused on the problem that we're solving and we'll do whatever it takes. We'll shift, we'll lift, we'll move. But in enterprise, we stop doing that. So again, it's a huge trade-off. So again, we have to understand what motivates people to keep things the same, that level of certainty around their job, what they're going to be working on, what it looks like in their day-to-day can sometimes get in the way of that conversation progressing. So Griffin, great question. And it's a big industry issue. But again, this isn't a product problem. This is more of a people element and change management and the evolution to the future of the product and where you want it to go and making sure that you've got the support to do that. And you being in the room as a product manager asking, when was the last time we visited this? And what could this look like for us if we had an ideation session where it was like a greenhouse? We all submitted our ideas and said, yes, and this other thing. Yes, and we could do this other thing. And we could restructure the team to look like this, not saying that it's a green light to do anything, but a greenhouse in order for those ideas to emerge could be a great meeting for you and your teams to just ideate together and spitball. What could that look like for us?
Awesome. Okay, another one. What information does a product manager need to successfully say no or not now to a feature? Okay, so this is one
about our product fight.
Yeah, sure. Do you want
You go for it. But I feel like this is like when even amongst product managers when we don't agree.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like, essentially, you're going to be saying no or not now to almost everything. And that's what makes our job really hard sometimes. It's like there's often lots of really good ideas, and we have to choose one or two things to focus on. So, what makes this a lot easier is if you have a very clear vision and strategy. I think that's number one, the easiest way to say no. Because if you don't have a clear vision and strategy, you're just saying no, and you're not saying no, but you're getting this. So if you have a clear vision and strategy, you can say, okay, that idea sounds cool. This is what we're trying to get. And tell them this amazing vision of the future. do you think this will help us get there? And they might say, actually, no. And that vision of the future sounds pretty awesome. So I'm okay to just let this one go. I'd say, in my experience, my personal experience as a product manager, I've been able to say no to most things by having a very compelling vision that is co created and people are bought into. And I've had clients say, yeah, okay, I will let go of this thing because that thing that you're building actually sounds pretty awesome. And how can we help? So that's the first line of defense. But yeah, our product fight, Chris and I agree or completely disagreed on a product. Related to that failing story, I thought it was going to fail. Krista thought it wasn't. And it turns out we looked at the data. We looked at data and looking at actually the size of the market and some of the restrictions that were out there. That product is very unlikely to ever be successful without highly manual intervention. And then that becomes a question of, we were both right, but then it becomes a question of, do we want to launch a product that requires a ton of manual intervention? And then that's just a different conversation. So yeah, that's our product disagreement. So sometimes it's, yeah, no or not now, or sometimes it does this fit with what we want for our using for our company. And if it doesn't, then it's a lot easier to say no. And I noticed that in this question, what information does a product manager need to successfully say no or not no now to a feature? People should be able to accept that no, because you have to say yes to so few things. So we're going to be saying no to good ideas. So it's not the bucket's full and then we pull things out. We're only pulling in things. So let's start with an assumption of no. We don't have the time or the resources for everything. So that's my thought on that. Krista, what do you think?
And I think too, in just either not showing a feature because we're not ready, right? Yeah. And this all comes back to math wins arguments, right? If you can say there's a feature that you've finished, but you're afraid if you release it, it's going to overload your client success team. And you know that. Maybe it's their busiest time of year and this isn't the right time. How can you use that math to tell the story of the reason why something should happen, but just not right this moment? And again, back to Renee's point on that vision and strategy, another great tactical thing I used to do was when somebody brought me something that is a really great idea, but I have to remember I'm not the core decision maker. I bring all the business partners, otherwise known as stakeholders, in a room, and I'm like, we've had some new information. Here's a thing that's a really exciting opportunity. Let's all align on if it is the most important thing. And I have them figure it out, right? Because one of them is going to have to give something up. And it's not me taking it away from them. It's them agreeing and aligning as a group that their most important thing as a group right now is this. And I think what we do as product managers and what I did very early in my career is held that for everybody when I shouldn't. I should just be propping it up for them and putting it on the tee and letting them hold it for themselves. Bring that accountability into the room by inviting them into the conversation. Don't think that's just for you to hold. It's actually a group thing. So when we talked about the frequency of alignment activities, one of the things I used to do was a weekly sort of, I called it a fam jam check-in with my business partners. And I would talk about these things that are coming up, like on the roadmap. We've got something that came into the parking lot. What do you guys think? Like, where does this sit? Is it important that we need to see it and keep eyes on it and measure it? Or is it something that's going to come in? What do we need to start shifting now if this is going to be the most important thing? But we do that together. And I'm just hosting the meeting, putting the slide up, showing the now, next, and later, and asking them, where does this fit? Resources are finite. And to Renee's point, the assumption, the operating assumption is no until we can turn that into a yes. And it's not you that does that. It's the team. So that is, I think, one of the biggest early days in my career lessons was how to not hold that for everyone and not think they would hate me. This would get in the way of my career development, and that it was something that I could just tactically make it our habit instead of mine to hold.
Absolutely. That touches on one of the biggest mistakes we make as product people is thinking that we own everything. And I know this is from history of having product owners. We can't build the product on our own. The team owns the success of the product. We can't take that all on our shoulders. So we can all take on the decisions of what we say yes to as well. All right, balance. I find developers can sometimes get stuck in the details. I forget who are they solving the problem for, or rely on the PM for every product decision. What strategies can you suggest to empower the dev teams more? Amazing. Kristen, you want to start this one out?
I could. Practically, how I've overcome this, and this happens every time. So Alan's like, you could get this in a really good spot on your team, but then it rolls back for some reason. So the thing that I do when I start to notice that my Slack or my internal DMs are blowing up saying, we need to pull you into this meeting because XYZ, we need an answer on XYZ because they can't solve it for themselves, is to get the users back in front of them, like face to face. So what I would do is I would host an interview where I'd be asking the user questions based on where we are in the development just to reconnect them with the user instead of their assumptions around them. Because what we do see is that developers and even product managers, we think we are the user over time. And sometimes we want a system where I call it the would you like fries with that scenario where I'm taking an order from a product manager and the developers would say to me, would you like fries with that or a Diet Coke? And that's when I know that I've gotten them too far away from the problem that we're solving. So we're humans. We connect with other humans. The best thing that you can do is instantly invite a real human to a development meeting or an ideation session and just let it go. Ask a ton of questions to get started. Even have the user share their screen and show them how they're using the software. This is so powerful with developers because then it just takes that again. They're not holding that for the user anymore. They see that as something that someone else is holding for them and they know how to go after that information because they've connected with a real person. And you are not the single source of truth for that. You're a conduit, you're a facilitator, but you are not the user either. So practically, and I know sometimes that's scary because do we have to ask permission to get this person in for an interview? No, you don't. You hold that power in your calendar. You book the meeting, you invite the devs, you invite the user, everyone shows up, and you just have an ideation session with them. And Renee's a master at ideation, so I'm sure you've got more stuff to add on, but
Oh,
that was a tip that changed my career doing that.
oh, that is the tip to end all tips. Yeah, honestly. And then what will happen is when you do that is you have to rein it in because your team will be like, "Oh, we could do this, we could do this, we could do this, we could try this." And then they get so excited about solving this person's problem that they start doing everything. And then you have to be like, okay, this was one person. What could we do? How do we focus this? So that is, I don't know. I haven't seen anything else work better than that. And just remembering that all the discovery we do bring people along because even watching a video of a user is not the same as hearing it from the user's mouth and being like, hi, this is this person who exists in the flesh. You're talking to them, listen to them. It's so empowering and inspiring.
Is,
So,
and they get to see the impact of their work on another human being. Think how rare it is that developers get to see the outcome of what they built for someone, like one to one like that. That in and of itself, if you were as a product manager sat down and somebody told you that the thing that you built changed their life, you go home that night and you're like, holy shit, that was incredible. But the dev team rarely gets that connection. So if you give that to them, that is really the tip to be that beloved product manager is the one that shows gratitude and shares that information with them and keeps them really close to that experience so that there is a human connection to what they're building and you're not just a requirements doc passer. Your like human connection and real problems are coming from your discovery that you're doing as a team. And it's a way of getting them into the discovery process without forcing them into activities and rituals that they have to plan on their own. It's just a way that you can open that door to get them to say yes to more discovery.
amazing. We've got so many questions. We'll go for the full hour. So we've got so many good questions here. And then we'll just leave a couple minutes at the end to wrap up. All right. So Brony's asking with the large tech layoffs in the US and hundreds or even thousands of applicants to postings, can you talk about what you're hearing and saying regarding the state, both local and regional, of the PDM job market? Thank you for asking this question. This is such an important question. So first off, when we see these hundreds and thousands of applicants, if we're looking at LinkedIn, that is counting if you've clicked apply now to, or like just click to view the job. It's not actually counting applicants. So if you're looking at LinkedIn jobs, they are so highly inflated not that many people have actually sent in their applications. Most of them are just checking out the job description on the website of the actual company. So that's a little bit overblown. And yeah, so we have seen tech layoffs and we have seen some decreases in the US. In Canada, we're not seeing as much, especially in Alberta. We're not seeing as much of a decrease because we're really an emerging market. So we have a lot of startups and scale ups that are still hiring, where in the US, they have larger, more mature products and operate and run with less people. So that is a factor. But overall, product management as a skill set is one of the most sought after skill sets in any role. So, regardless of if you get a product management job or a related role, this skill set is highly sought after and it's growing. So, maybe right now we might see fewer specific product management job listings in the US. In our program, for example, in our state applied product management program that we run in partnership with state, we have a 72% higher rate. The change we've seen is that we used to get that higher rate within 3 months after students graduate. Now it's about 6 months. That's the biggest change. So it's just taking a little bit longer, but this skill is still highly sought after. So you can go for adjacent role, a consumer success role. Also, those traditional industries that have been struggling to hire tech workers, they can finally hire them. So we're going to see like traditional banking get better, law tech get better. So I think overall, we're still seeing a real upswing. It's just we hear this doom and gloom in the news, and it's not all true. You can still have a very successful career in product management and or take those skills to a highly related role and have a great career.
Yeah. And I think one thing we have to remember too, when you're watching the news at night, they're making a ton of money off catastrophizing everything, right? This is, of course, they're going to say the tech sector is in trouble. Then how come we have 150% growth year over year in Canada in technology? It's a lack of understanding in the context to which we work in. We have to remember during the pandemic, there was extreme growth in tech in order to service our needs as a society. That's an elastic and it stretched. It stretched as far as we could take it. Now, of course, as the environment in the world changes, that elastic's going to come back into play. So all of that stretch that occurred, there is going to be a little bit of a level set. And as product people, we know, and as Renee alluded to, that products that are more mature require less development, might be on rails, right? There's more of a different strategy where the life cycle of that business is. And those of us over the age of 40 something will remember a time when tech companies had a lifespan of 3 to 5 years, right? We would all be looking for jobs within 3 to 5 years. And now we've gone through nearly a decade of way more stability, companies staying private longer. So we've all gotten really comfortable on the fact that we didn't have to keep a super up to date resume and a recruiter in our back pocket as like a lifestyle choice of entering into tech. It's shifted and it's become more stable, but it is still an industry where the product, as it grows, it does contract. And if you're going for companies that are more enterprise, that have more mature products, you are going to see that happen in a cycle. So if you want to get into you and take a look at stats on startups and companies that are emerging and in high growth, and that's where you want to be targeting your efforts as a product manager. If you feel like you're a little insecure because you catch them on the way up, you're going to be obviously in a very high growth time, which is a really exciting product manager role. So depending on what you're looking for, the industry can give you anything that you want right now. It just depends on finding the right fit for what industry you would like, the problems you like to solve. And again, it's a cycle. So we're in another cycle, but our hiring rates with our students have stayed the same, which tells us it's really more of a news item to get us to freak out that something's going on that's reportable rather than like gut checking that with real facts and understanding what's going on in the industry instead of a bunch of opinions. Great question. We talk about this all the time, Brody. Hopefully you find something that speaks to you. And yeah, that's just our perspective.
Yeah. Okay. What are some strategies for communicating successes or failures to an executive audience? I don't mind taking a first stab at this one. Okay, so this one I find with executives. It can depend on the type of executive. So there's some executives that like to use command and control and fear. And if you say we missed a deadline, they're going to get really upset. But I find that actually most executives, they've been around a block many times and they know that failure is a big part of the process. And although it might seem like they're going to be mad at you and maybe they act mad at you, they know they're using that as a tactic to get you to work hard and try to make it work. I think in reality, if we are as transparent and open as possible, executives respond really well to that, just like anyone would. So we know that failure is part of the process. Chances are the executive does know as well. So if we're bringing them along in our journey, surfacing risks, saying this might go wrong, this is an unknown, but this is how we're testing and mitigating these. Do you have questions, comments? If things do go wrong and you've been priming them with risks and what you're doing to mitigate, they have more trust in your process. And when things do go wrong, they know that it probably was something that was outside of your control. What we see often happen though is people go, oh, I got to impress the executives. Here's all these things that are going amazing and going so well. And this is never going to fail. Let's resist that urge. And I say one of the tactical ways of doing this is whenever you talk to an executive, add a risks slide. Here's the risks. Here's what we're doing to mitigate. Here's what we're experimenting with. But I'm going to be transparent with you. This isn't a pony ride. So that's my thoughts on that. I'm sure Christa also has a ton of thoughts on.
I think when talking about the wins too, in seeding the wins, but also presenting the learnings that got us that win. I think it's making it a balanced conversation. So 2 things. I've tried this a number of ways where I show up, I've got a deck, I'm ready. It's 10 pages. I get to slide 2 and then it gets derailed because there was a typo or that whole, here's this other stuff, Christa, that you didn't consider. And I'm like, oh my God. I sweat over this for weeks. Everybody made such a huge deal about what an opportunity it was to come sit down with the CEO, and they just destroyed my whole presentation, and I just didn't know what to do. Okay, so be prepared. Have a plan B for when that presentation does not go your way. That is the first thing I would say to you, that if you get derailed, that you know enough about what's going on to just make it more of a fireside chat, more of a Q&A than a presentation. Take questions. Right? Ask them what questions they would answered in advance. Also, another pro tip in celebrating the wins and the learnings is getting up in front of the whole company regularly and sharing them with everyone. The executives are in that audience, right? But when you're telling the story of the win and the learnings of your teams over a certain period of time and the value you created in the business or the product, and show the numbers of what that represents with metrics, you are a beloved product leader at that point and trusted, right? Because what executive doesn't want to see the material value increase of their investment? They were at one time an entrepreneur in the hustle, trying to get this company off the ground. You show them that materially this investment net them that win and that increase in value in their company, as a whole different kind of conversation than just coming in with wins and losses. It's about how did we increase the value of this company and the value of this product for our customers. So I think there's a couple of different approaches, but again, if you go with the presentation, have a plan B, have the risk slide that Renee said, that's super helpful. And then also try other methods other than the high risk one-on-one meeting, get to everyone and work on your public speaking. People who can speak in public are more respected in their companies. It's just how humans operate. So don't leave that on the table. If you've got a win to communicate, get up there and really express gratitude for the team. Don't take the win for yourself. You share it with the company and with your team and call them out and call them into the conversation about how amazing this team is and what they did and stories about it. And it's really powerful. So yeah, practical tips.
Yeah, practical tips. Those are the best ones, I think. And then with executives, also they hate details. Just give them the highlight.
Yeah, don't get in
Just
the
the
weeds.
highlight
What was
reel.
the process? Then what did we learn? Not how did you get there, all the steps, but just what was the key takeaway in the learning? And then what did you do next? Yeah, be brief, be bright, be gone. That's what I learned.
Love
Yeah.
it. Okay. I think that's it. I know Balance just mentioned he wrote some questions and then deleted it. This is an integration with LinkedIn. So I think the integration isn't working too well. So we answered some questions multiple times, or like Balance's questions showed up multiple times, but it's okay. We got it. We got to it, which is the important thing. So thank you, Balance, for sharing your questions. And yeah, we are getting out of time here. This was so much fun. Let us know your thoughts. Like, connect with us on LinkedIn. Send us DMs. Send us your questions. This was really fun. So we'll probably be doing this again. And we'll do the shout out to the fact that our courses, 2 of them are starting on Thursday. So we have the product management professional course starting. That's for folks that are maybe 1 to 3 years into their product careers and they're looking to grow in their careers. Check out that course. It starts on Thursday. And if you want to pivot into product management or you're new to product management, the SATE Applied Product Management program is for you. So please check out our LinkedIns. Thank you, Monica. I just said highly recommend their course. Yes, Monica is a wonderful graduate of our course and is a leader in technology here in Downtown Calgary. So thank you. Definitely check out either one of those. Just DM us. So just DM us if you're interested and we can send you all the information. So one call to action, DM us. Me or Christa, connect with us. If you're interested, we can send you the links directly. Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks so much, everyone. So great to see so many of you. And we'll be doing this again for sure. Oh, yeah. This was so much fun.
That was really fun. We'll definitely be doing this again. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Have a great day. Thank you so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, rate and review this podcast, and you might find your review in a future episode. Please subscribe to Product for Humans wherever fine podcasts are downloaded. To get more information about Product for Humans and our content, please visit our website at tacit-edge.com, tacit-edge.com. We'll see you next time. Okay? Should we do it one more time?
Sweet. Yeah, let's do it.